And it says we're live. All right.
Okay. I'm so proud of you.
So much happened just to get us here. Um, Thank you, Kendall, for agreeing to discuss your work with me today. For those of you, welcome to those of you watching this video. My name is Kelly Baker Josephs. This is the second video in a series of conversations with playwrights who have published in Manchineel Seagrape. Um, Manchineel Seagrape is a publication dedicated to publishing open access editions of Caribbean plays. And today we're with Kendel Hippolyte, who will discuss his play Cash Pandora. So again, thank you, Kendel, for agreeing to
Yeah.
discuss your work
Well,
with me today.
yeah. Well, thank you, Kelly. This is wonderful. Yeah. And first of all, thanks for the electronic publishing, thing. And that's really, really wonderful. I think that's certainly one of the ways to go now.
Yes,
Yeah, and you're lovely to deal with. So it's been a pleasure. Yeah. Yeah.
thank you. Um, I I'm gonna start by doing a short summary of the play,
Mm.
and then we'll go into our conversation. I sent you some questions. We'll see how many of those we get to. So I'm going to quote from the introduction that we published in Manchineel Seagrape that was written by John Robert Lee, fellow St. Lucian of yours, fellow countryman of yours. And he writes, "It is a powerful dystopian parable that attempts to send a message to our small, capitalist-rooted societies. And it features a prime minister and his financially strapped cabinet who are getting ready to hand themselves and their island over to the IMF, which many of us are familiar with that moment. Um, and at that moment, as he writes, a fast-talking stranger, Madison, appears in the PM's office with a coffin-shaped box, which magically reproduces and multiplies the money put into it. And the PM and his cabinet are persuaded to use the box, and the economy is saved. And then from there, the price that Cash Pandora begins to and continues to exact just grows and grows and grows. And this forms the central conflict of the play. So, could you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to write Cash Pandora?
Yeah. Thanks, Kelly. When I think about the trigger for writing it, um, it seems even a little weird because the link is not direct. I remember around shortly before I wrote it, I was reading there's a short story by Borges called A Lottery in Babylon, which speaks about a society that was actually run by lottery. Everything, the judicial system, the economy, everything was run with just, chance, roll a dice or whatever. And that really kind of got my imagination going. And I remember thinking, yeah, that's not, in a way, it's not really that far off from the truth. It's the truth taken to a kind of an almost absurdist level, but it's not that far off from the truth. I find in my plays, to some extent in my poetry, but in my plays, maybe more so, I tend to be more overtly political.
Mhm.
I come at things from a kind of a very, very broadly Marxist perspective, kind of, old time unreconstructed Marxist perspective. And so I've always had you know, a very, very critical look perspective on this system, the capitalist system that I grew up in, that's around so much of the world. So this was a kind of a continuing critique of it, which has happened in different kind of ways in a couple of other plays of mine. Um, so I think the idea of something of a system operating by chance on a whim almost, I think came from that. That's the closest I can assume. I can remember it sparking it off, but the specific storyline, etc., that developed from there is not really directly connected to the short story at all. Um, so that's the clearest I can think of in terms of pinning down, an origin for it. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Thank you. Lee,
Yeah.
John Robert Lee, mentions in his introduction that the play was, well, he says first performed in 1992 at the Lighthouse Theater. And before we started the video, you were telling me a little bit more about that. So here
Yeah.
on the video, can you tell us more about the context of the first performance of the play? And then also, he mentions the Lighthouse Theater. If you could tell us after that a little bit more about Lighthouse Theater.
Yeah. No problem. Glad to. Okay. So I had at least some kind of basic draft of this play as far back as 1987, 88. I was My wife and I had done theater studies at Lee Strasberg Theater Institute in New York. Um, and for one of these, so you do a regular program and then there are electives in it. And I had chosen one of the electives I had chosen was directing.
Mm,
And persons who had chosen those, you had to put on something for director's night. So I chose an excerpt from that play for director's night. I certainly had already called it Cash Pandora by that time. The
mm,
the the excerpt I chose was that meeting where all the ministers,
mhm,
where all the ministers are pondering, can they really do this? Can they take it on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And things kind of go crazy from there. So that's the excerpt that I put on. It's funny, and it uses a fair amount of actors, and that's
yes.
it wasn't a requirement that we use a fair amount of actors, but somehow I kind of sense it made more sense to use more actors. So I did that. So that was where it was done. Sometime in 1988, and it went well. The person who had um, who was my tutor professor for the directing option, and she was also an acting teacher. She really liked it a lot, and I know it went over well for an audience, and that was good for me because I kind of started from an assumption, even up to now, that I am writing in a Caribbean context for Caribbean people, not necessarily primarily St. Lucia, although some of my plays are very, very St. Lucian focused. But I think of myself as writing from the Caribbean for the Caribbean.
Mhm,
So it's heartening when you do that and then it reaches a wider audience without any, you don't have to manipulate or massage anything. It just works.
mhm,
So yeah, I remember that. Yeah, so that exhibit was done in 1988. And then we did it. I had I can't remember how much reworking I did. I don't have an impression of doing much reworking of it um, between then and when I put it on at the Lighthouse Theatre in 1992. I'll tell you a bit about Lighthouse in a while, but we put it on Lighthouse in 1992, and Lighthouse Theatre is a small theatre. It's like about maximum like 120, 100, call about 110 seats. So it's not a big theater, but it was the longest running play. We did it for 4 weekends. At the time, we used to do 3-day weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So it ran for 12 performances and had like almost like packed audiences every time. Every time audiences began to dwindle towards the last weekend of it, and then I closed it down. But we're still getting good audiences for it. It was the longest running play that we'd ever had. Sparked a lot of chat, at least among among the audience, etc. Um, all kinds of things, and St. Lucia, like a number of Caribbean countries. I mean, the whole um, obia witchcraft thing is very much in people's heads. And this thing of a coffin on the stage with a lid and so on. People are asking me serious questions about that. You'll ask me questions about that. But yeah, so it did well. Um, Lighthouse Theatre, I'll condense that really, really rapidly. So that was it. I think it was, and I think probably remains. We lost the building anyway. Um, it's I think was in its time, and I think probably up to now, the Lighthouse Theatre Company was the only group that actually owned its own space, its own
mm,
performing space. It's a complicated story as to how we got a hold of the space, but the building that we had, it was a prefab building that had been a preschool, and then by force of circumstance and otherwise, we got it. We had to pay a monthly sum towards the ownership of it, which we did in about 3.5 years. But having your own space was wonderful because it meant that you could not only put on plays, you can always do that, but we could actually plan a program for a year. We
Mm.
could do regular workshops. We could host other groups, and we did that. Both groups in St. Lucia, the Caribbean. We had a group from England one time, and from Birmingham. So you really could look ahead and plan and see how is this group going to be nurtured, how it's going to grow, make choices about what kind of plays you want to put on that would both be an education for the actors,
Hmm.
um, as well as for the
But
audience,
yeah. Hmm.
so it was really, really wonderful. So we did that from 1984, about July 1984, till sometime early 2001, when the land that the building was on.
Oh.
Um, yeah, okay. So next to the Lighthouse Theatre was a residence, an old house, which had been it became the venue, so to speak, for the St. Lucia School of Music was housed there. Um, and we had a really, really good relationship with them. So we kind of had most of our stuff was done in the evenings to the nighttime. Most of their stuff was done during the daytime. So we kind of had a gentleman's agreement that they could use the space. We had chairs. We'd gotten a donation of chairs. I had, got platform. We had lights, all that kind of stuff. Um, so yeah, so we had a gentleman's agreement that yeah, you could use the space, and then we get an evening. And from time to time, the School of Music, because they had various programs, some of those programs were quite large. They had a community orchestra, choir, that kind of thing,
Mm.
which a lot of the time, those larger programs were housed in various government buildings here and there. But more than once, there'd been a scare that they might not be able to continue housing, doing these programs in those one of those government buildings. So we had an agreement that, look, if they ever had to um, get get to use our space, to take it over, then they would compensate us for it, unless we had land somewhere else and could lift it up and bring it somewhere else. So they had a scare a couple of times, and eventually in 2001, that came to pass, that they had no choice but to ask us to. So they compensated us quite justly for it. It was, we were justly compensated. And yeah, we moved. So we get about 17, call it 18 years inclusive
In
of a
that
lot
space.
of really, really good work.
Oh.
Kept a list of, we did a whole range of all kinds of plays and things like art exhibitions, symposiums on calypso, all kinds of stuff. It was a real hub of artistic
Yeah.
activity. So I look forward to getting our own space again. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah, that I mean, space is is very important.
for
Um,
sure.
let's see. I was the play performed any other time or just in 1992? Cash Pandora.
It was performed, I think, 2 years ago. I think it was 2023. The Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, they have a theatre arts program. Um, one of the professors in the program actually acted in Cash Pandora.
Oh, okay. So that's how
In fact,
he.
he acted as Madison. The role of Madison was it was double casted.
Mm.
So he did it one and a couple of times. So he told me he'd always had an interest in doing it, you know. So he did it there with a mix of mainly theater art students, but he brought in some staff members as well, as in some of the more minor roles, and he got the technical division to do a kind of techno looking Cash Pandora box. I mean, it had lights and yeah, I'm not even sure how to say. 'Cause mine was basically like a coffin with a slit, you know. But it was a coffin with a slit, but it obviously had techno additions to it,
It was a more bling coffee.
Yeah,
Having heard
basically
someone
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. but
Oh,
that went really, really well. It was a one, I think it was a one night performance. Um, Place was packed because I mean, all students, friends, and students came and money. So that was a large hall. That's about like maybe about 700 people. And it went again, it went really, really well. So
it's
yeah.
so great that, it's so it has so much to it, this play, that I can
Mm,
see it being packed each time.
okay.
And it also, it travels well. It has legs in the sense of not
Yeah.
travels geographically, although that too, I think, but
Mm-hmm.
time, across time. Which
Mm,
we'll talk about that a little bit more later. I want to go a little more into the play. Maybe actually, you did this, as you said, as part of a course you were doing, a course of study you were doing
yeah.
in directorship. So
Yeah. I
you're
did an
you're
excerpt.
poet, you're playwright, you're director.
Yeah. Yeah.
What in from writing the play to producing the play or directing the play, was there anything that changed from page to stage that you can remember, or did it, because you wrote it thinking about the stage, did it sort of seamlessly move towards stage?
I think it seamlessly moved. I think it seamlessly moved. Yeah, as I say, I'm a director. There's a plus and a minus to that because for me, the real fun of directing is doing something that you don't know in a sense, and you're finding out as you go. I prefer to direct other people's work. I really do, really, really do.
Oh, okay.
I like the adventure of exploring and just going on a hunch that. So no, it moved pretty seamlessly because I'm pretty compulsive about, well, both about writing poetry and about writing plays. But certainly I'm compulsive about, when it comes to writing plays. By that I mean I I draft and redraft, even in my head first, before I put it down. And then when I put it down, I'm going back over it again and again, again. Yeah, with a director's eye, you know.
Hmm.
So no, that I think by the time I came to put it on, there might have been very, very minor things in dialogue that I might have shifted a few words here and there, but no, not really, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Uh,
that's moving in the play itself. So you end the play the play ends, and then there's a note in the text that says
yeah,
that, it gives the director the option to shift the ending. So a director that's not you, which it seems like
yeah,
has only happened once so far.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but it gives the director the option to shift the ending, and then I'm going to quote how you wrote this. It says, "This is a decision that which rightly should affect the shape of the entire production and should be considered and settled beforehand with sincerity." So given that one shift at the end could change, how the whole work is,
It could,
the shape of the whole work, why give that
it could,
option to a director?
yeah. Um, because I think I myself, okay, I mean, the ending, not just the ending, I mean, the play is tending toward, uh, insofar as it has a resolution, one way or the other, it's tending toward the idea that in the in this nightmare system that we're living in, the the real hope, the real hope lies in art. All right.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. And, and it's understood. I mean, art itself doesn't by itself change a society. But I
Hmm.
don't think you can't change a society without art. You
Okay.
can't change a society for the better without art. Right? So that's a kind of a, a hope, a faith that I have, but sometimes it's quite strong. Other times, not that strong. I've never let it go. I've never ever let it go. Um, so the way the play ends, I think certainly when I put it on, and I think if I did it now, it would probably be the same thing. And we can talk about two different endings in a while. It would probably end in the same way, the first ending on a note of strong hope,
Mm-hmm.
but not actually conclusively saying yes,
Mm-hmm.
But I think if a director has a feeling of this, art is, yeah, we can count on it. It's always going to work, et cetera, and has that really, really almost gung ho kind of passionate belief in it, then it would end the second way. Then the second way that's indicated as an option, but it would mean that even how you frame, how you shape the characters, and particularly the interaction among that outcast
Yeah,
section,
yeah.
the way they deal with each other, how you shape their characterization in there would have to be affected by that, you know, would have to be affected by that, and you might have to, or you might want to give some kind of stronger indication of the power of art earlier on in
Before,
little
yeah,
little ways early on in the text, kind of like give little nuances, little foreshadowings before,
yeah.
so that for me, and I couldn't tell a director that this is what you have to do,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you're always direct, yeah, you have to direct from conviction, so yeah, yeah,
It makes sense. And I think it's part of, as you said, the way you write is always already inhabiting the position of director and writer. And so you're
yeah,
thinking about what would be necessary for someone else to direct,
yeah,
or to
exactly,
stage this play.
yeah,
I think I want to skip, I'm going to skip to the question of the characters, the outcast characters, right?
mhm, mhm,
So Leah, who is central in the outcast characters,
mhm, mhm,
it's described in the character list as a young, or described in the play as a young woman, dumb, musically gifted, inclined to the mystical. Um, and why did you make her incapable of speech? And I'll stop there. Why did you make her incapable of
right,
speech as a central character in that outcast society?
yeah. Because okay, one of the ideas running through the play is the way that language, not just
Hmm.
speech, the way that language is used to prop up the system, the way the language is used to bamboozle people, to trick
Yes.
people, uh, um, you know, the Madison character exemplifies it. But he's not, but he's just the most extreme example of it. Um, and okay, I mean, I'm a poet, so I can't help but be aware of the double-edged nature of language. Now, given that that is one of the ideas running through the play, that language is one of the ways in which this thing is propped up and kept going, it made sense to me. And plus, I absolutely love music. I love jazz music in particular, and so on. It made sense to me that to to be able to stand against the system, to maintain a distance from it, you have to be able to step outside of language, the usual ways it operates. And music for me, more than any of the art forms, is the one that does that. You know, if I think if music is true,
Hmm.
once it's in an idiom, in a musical genre, in an idiom that you can connect with, out of culture and otherwise. Once it's in that kind of idiom, if it's true, it's going to bypass intellectual rationalizations, et cetera, all are going to bypass supportive logic, all that kind of thing, and just go straight to the truest part of you, you know? So it made sense to me to have a figure like that in there, as a kind of an antithesis to Madison.
Yes, yeah.
Uh, yeah. Um, but also it made sense to me as well that with a group of outcasts like that who are trying to hold their own against that system, it made sense to me that music would be one of the things that would hold them together, you know. And with the music, of course, comes
Yeah.
movement, comes dance, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Because,
yeah.
there's a moment where Leah, I think it's Leah, it's where it may be where she's first introduced and she's unpacking the things that she's gotten for the day, that she's
Yeah,
scavenged basically. Because in
yeah,
this new
yeah. Mhm,
society, people are throwing away all sorts of things because they have money to buy new things. And she takes out a painting.
mhm.
In that, I don't know if you remember in this
Yeah,
moment,
yeah,
but
I do,
it's,
I do.
I think that would be one of the moments if I were one of the directors who chose your second ending,
Hmm.
would
Um,
really like play up more, right?
mm,
That people
yeah,
are
yeah,
throwing away art.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
what does
yeah.
this mean in this current madness that they're living in? It really,
Okay.
there's so
Yeah,
much that I want to talk
yeah,
about, but
yeah.
I'm
Okay.
going to, as I told you, give, uh, sneak in a question that of another of your fellow St. Lucians sent to me after the conversation yesterday with Pamela
Mm,
Mordecai. So Luke and Francis, who I've worked with on his digital project, he said
mm,
that, that in these current times, Cash Pandora has acquired renewed relevance. I don't know if it's renewed. I think it's just relevant all the time.
mm.
But he says he's curious about your thoughts about whether it could be or might be adapted for television or film, like how you would see that.
I mean, it's an attractive idea. I've never worked in any big way in either television or film. I've done a bit of television stuff, but more like for public education. There's a constitutional
Hmm.
reform program, and I was doing a series, but that was fairly simple. I've never really worked in film. Um, my my sense is that I'm attracted to the idea. Um, I certainly am attracted to the idea. I know if I were ever to get into film, that is not the first project I would want to do because that just feels so big and I'd want to do something smaller first so I kind of wet my feet and learn the ropes properly. But certainly the idea of that going out to a wider audience, in St. Lucia and the Caribbean and so on, certainly that's attractive, and I'm drawn to the idea of the challenges that would be involved in that because I say the what appeals to me about directing is going into something where you don't quite know how to solve the things. You're just going there with the
Yeah.
faith that the problems will be solved. And film would allow me that in a way that staging it again wouldn't,
Yeah,
not to
I
that
see
degree.
that. Yeah.
So yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Although there's a lot to the play that I mean, as it currently is, which is
Hmm.
is written for a live audience,
Hmm.
right? There's
Hmm.
parts of it where the actors are coming from the audience itself and
That's right.
drawing the audience in, and
Yep,
so
yep, yep.
um,
Oh,
trying to
yeah,
replicate that in film
exactly.
might be
Yeah,
it would be a challenge, as you said.
yeah,
So we
yeah.
are coming already to the end of our half an hour.
Wow.
Yeah, that went fast. I want to ask two things. If you could tell us a little bit about other plays you've written, maybe not all of them, but
Okay.
one
Mhm.
or two, and then what you're currently working on.
Okay. Yeah, well, like I said earlier on, I mean, my plays, most of them tend to be more political, critiquing the system and so on. Some I've staged, some I haven't staged.
Hmm.
Um, so um, the, there's one I've been working on, damn it, from September till like all April until February, March this year, and then had to put it on the site because I just wasn't satisfied with how things were going. It's called Our Mother Who Art the Earth. Again, it's a very, very strong critique of all my plays in one way or another critique the capitalist system, but this one is looking more at the whole tourism thing
Hmm.
and the way that like beach access is being begin to be denied, to people in St. Lucia and elsewhere. That for me, the current model of tourism for me encourages a kind of apartheid, honestly. you know. So the play has to, and also a lot of it, to my mind, doesn't respect our Mother Earth enough. So the place called Our Mother Who Art the Earth, I've become over the years very much involved in environmental activity and environmental activism. So there was that. And that's a play that has a lot of audience participation thing and so on in it. So there was that. I wrote a play which I somebody else put it on in Jamaica, called Ash Wednesday, set during the carnival season.
Yeah.
And in Ash Wednesday, for me, it's kind of like was looking at a kind of what I saw as a kind of a, a transition moment historically between when Black power and Black nationalism um, was was the driving force and all the things, into a perspective that was more kind of like broadly Marxist, working class, which takes in Black nationalism and so on, but it moved more definitively toward that, to my mind, in Jamaica, because I was living in Jamaica at the time, and I saw it. To me, I saw that being marked. So there was that. There's another play I wrote called Lystra's play. Lystra standing for l'histoire, history, and it's a play about people putting on a play about independence. But while they're putting on the play about independence, there's all the back and forth going on in the wider society about should we go independent, should we win, and it's going right back into so there's that. There are other plays I've written that are not overtly political. Well, not in that kind of sense. There's another play I wrote called that play was actually three plays in one. I didn't realize it until a friend pointed it out to me, called In Half an Hour, So Much Can Change. Is a play that it was commissioned by CARICOM, to focus on the HIV/AIDS
Mhm.
situation. Um, so I've done that. Um, I've just put on a play called, no, we closed it just around one weekend. I put on a play called Triptych, just three persons in it. And it's about a kind of intersection between political activism and art. There's an artist, there's a political activist, there's a woman who is very, very honest and making both of them to, look inward before they go out. So yeah, so there's that. And there are others. One of my favorite plays, I'll just say that very, very quickly, was not a political play in any kind of overt sense. So I wrote like a folk musical,
Mhm.
called The Song of One, or The Journey of Timari. And Timari is, from my mind, almost like a female counterpart, a little girl counterpart to Tijan, the Derek Walcott Tijan thing.
Okay.
And that was a fun play. And we took it to Carifesta. I did it in 1995, and it was a lot of fun. And we created music for it and everything. Yeah, so there's that. Right now, what I'm about to work on is um, I'm going to put a script together, using some of my poetry, some of the poetry of there's a really, really wonderful spoken word, although he was doing his stuff before the term spoken word is around. A poet, oral poet, Ras Isley.
Mhm.
He does a lot of really, he sometimes performs with a drum. So his work and work of another person who's he's a poet and a storyteller and a wonderful actor called Fish Alphonse. So to mix our poetry together to create a script. So we're not going to do it as poetry. We're going to mix it around to create a script to kind of show, like, is like, for me, it's a kind of a portrait of St. Lucia, the light and the dark, you know, because
Oh,
both of them do stuff to their heritage and that kind of thing. But both of them also look at the underbelly, the dark side. So that I'm looking forward to having fun with that. I won't be acting in it. They will, and one of my good actor friends will be in it. So the three of them. So yeah.
do that.
I'm seeing it taking shape in my mind already, but yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Yeah.
Well,
Uh,
thank you so much for sharing.
yeah,
I feel like we could talk for so long. There's so
yeah,
much of what you said that I would love to follow up on, but we're
mm,
here at
yeah.
1:34. So I'm going to
So
say thank you, Kendall, for having this conversation with me. And thank you, guys who have been viewing. Let me work out how to stop the streaming
thank you.
and stop the recording.